Welcome back to the channel, and what a day today. Raining like cats and dogs, so rained off. I was about to try and fit this repair kit to my JCB because I'm leaking a bit of fluid by one of the rams and can't finish my digging out until that's fitted, but that's not going to happen today. So I thought we'd just start off down here in this small workshop. I've got a couple of clocks on the bench. We haven't had a clock of the week for a little while, so hear that? That's a French repeater carriage clock, just about ready to go back together. And then this latest pile of parts is a mantle clock a gentleman bought in, and now lockdown's lifting, we're getting a few more customers back. And the amount of oil that someone squirted into that is quite frankly astounding. Might even have to contact the Environment Agency, I think. It's absolutely flowing out. I mean, I've sopped up most of it, but it's soaked into the wood of the case. Hopefully it won't spoil the veneer, but still wasn't going to go. You can't just oil something into submission. But anyway, a good clean, doesn't seem to be anything broken, and that'll be back. Right, I think that's finished now. So, last week I showed you the Airfix 5-pole motor. So what I'm going to show you today is how I propose, now this is only a 3-pole armature, but the 5-pole one is virtually the same dimensionally, how I'm going to convert one of the 5-pole Airfix armatures to fit a brush type 2 or any of the other Tri-ang bogies. So we're going to pop up in the loft in a minute and just have a closer look at these things, and I'll tell you how I'm going to build this armature conversion. So hopefully next week we'll be running a 5-pole brush type 2. But before we do, I found just a couple of catalogues from Bassett Lowke. Now, being a Northamptonshire resident and growing up here, I was lucky enough to visit the factory as a small boy, and the wonderful things that were there. It was amazing. So that's a 62 catalogue, and in this catalogue there's actually Mamod, Tri-ang, Rin. In fact, let me just show you this. It's one of the reasons I want to keep this catalogue, because there we go. The Tri-ang 00 gauge 2 rail, and the range from around 62. Quickly, as time is getting on, but this is an older Bassett Lowke catalogue, and some of the stuff they made, boats, I mean ocean line traction engines, all the parts to build your own steam plant, boilers, engines, triple expansion engine. That's a marine engine there for a very large boat if you were making a model. So it's lovely to see all this stuff. Centre flue launch boiler, very much marine orientated, a lot of this, but some beautiful yachts as well. But anyway, I remember seeing a load of this stuff when I walked around the factory, and there was one item I did want to show you, but probably won't be able to find it now. There's a LNER Flying Scotsman, but look at this. Can you see that? I hope you can. 7¼ inch gauge 060 tank locomotive for your garden railway. Astounding. Haulage capacity 2 tons. I mean, what fun you could have with that. Pull your car out of the garage, that thing. But anyway, quite happy to stick with my 00 gauge. But interesting to think of Bassett Lowke. Wonderful company. And I guess we should be thankful that the name Bassett Lowke is carrying on. Hornby own it, and they're using it now for their steam punt range. So amazing that trademarks sort of change hands and the different types of products that they represent. But I'm all in favour of anything that gets young people back into any form of modelling, whether it be remote control, aeroplanes, boats, all the land-based crawlers, cars, you name it. So steampunk's got to be the way forward to get some people into railways. But anyway, let's get up to the loft and talk a bit more about the 5-pole conversion for the brush type 2. And while I was looking for these bits and bobs and my Super 4 turntable, which I can't find, I did come across a really battered but nice little old Mamod stationary engine. So I think we'll put a drop of water in and some meths, and there's nothing like the smell of a little steam engine to make you forget about the rainy day. So I'll see you up there shortly. Okay, well, apologies if you can hear the rain on the roof. There's not so much insulation up here, but here we are up in the loft, and on the table you can see that I've got various bits of electric motor. So, as I showed you earlier, there is an armature from the brush type 2. Here's the part of the bogie, and there's an XO4 armature. Now I've pulled the worms off of these, and I have got just a simple little worm puller, but it's a really good tool, so if you're ever interested in doing much work on your motors, I do recommend one. Now last week I showed you this Airfix motor. Oops, if I can just hold it in my hand. Now the dimensions of the armature in this are the same there as the XO4 armature. So if I look at the XO4 armature alongside the brush type 2, it's no worry that that shaft is just a mil or two shorter, because we've got the worm to go over at least 2/3, so there'll be plenty. Now before the bearing, I've got a nice amount. The bearing goes about where my fingernail is there. I've got a nice amount to make a little brass press-on interference fit join. Now this is 332, the size of the shaft, and I've got some spare shaft. So I'm on my lathe, I'm going to just machine out a little brass interference fit joiner, press it onto the armature, press another section of 332 3/32 shaft, and then put on the stupid plastic bearings. Now where are they? There they are, that suffer that crack in the top. But I use, and I'll show you what I do, a lot of people just pack them, but I use silicon wire. It's lovely soft stuff, and it makes a really effective shock absorbing repair. So we'll get that on, get the worms on, put it all together. So that's a job that I'll have done for next week. And hopefully on the test track next week we'll be running a 5-pole brush type 2. Now I did mention we'd have a little look at a steam engine, so just give me a second to move the camera and I'll show you what I've got. Okay, well I've got the little Mamod going here. Just building up pressure, giving it a flick start, and away it goes. And we're running, instead of the solid fuel that we had in the little RS1 train the other day, this is the old-fashioned type. It's a meths burner. Now I know that there's a lot more safety issues with meths, but I mean back in the day as boys we used to use them for our chemistry sets and engines. But nowadays it seems to be another thing that hasn't stood the test of time. Anyway, that's running absolutely beautifully, and I remember as a boy thinking of all the things I could drive with this, little dynamos or Meccano models. Used to have lots of great fun. So let's just see it go once more. Hasn't even got a level plug in it, this one, so you just have to fill the boiler up sort of 2/3 full, use a dipstick. Anyway, let's extinguish this burner. Now the eagle-eared of you will have heard something else, So I'll just pan over a little bit, and as we were talking about Bassett Lowke earlier, I've got a Bassett Lowke stationary engine set here to show you. Now I've got a nice amount of boiler pressure, and that is running beautifully. Now the safety valve's just blowing now at just over 50 psi. You can see the safety valve or hear it. So I'm going to extinguish the burner now. Now this is a METHS burner as well, but slightly more powerful. Anyway, that's out safely, so we've got no live flame up in the workshop. Now, out of sight, I have got a fire extinguisher and a fire blanket because we are indoors, but this is well ventilated. I've got windows open up here, Veluxes, and I don't think the fumes from methylated spirit are quite as bad as those that are given off by the solid fuel. But as you can see, that's just ticking over a treat. I can accelerate it. There's no governor on this engine. I don't want to speed it up too much, but let me just... You see, you could easily drive all sorts of equipment, a generator, any sort of stationary model. Let's just let that tick over. Try and get it going nice and slowly. Let me see if I can just zoom in and show you a little bit more detail. So on this end of the boiler we've got the sight glass, the pressure gauge, there's the regulator, safety valve a bit further back, and then on the baseboard I've got a water injector. So I've got some water in there. If the sight glass were to fall, I can just inject more water directly into the boiler. And there's what we're generating all this steam for. A lovely horizontal single cylinder engine, and that will run all day. A great representation of the larger engines used in factories back in the day. That's just the noise you can hear. That is a little bit of water in the chimney. Just squirt that out. This isn't piped into the chimney of the boiler, strangely enough. That's a job I could probably do. But what a lovely thing. We've got a oiler on there. And I'm not cleaning it up or polishing it or painting it. It's got a great patina on it. Slight rust on the sides of the boiler. Unfortunately, a little bit of evidence of slapdash decorating there. But anyway, this has got the appearance of the years on it. And it runs beautifully. Pressure's dropping down in the boiler now. We're below 10 psi, so we're just about getting to the end of this. So I hope you've been interested by what I've shown you today. I look forward to the next video where we're going to be running the 5-pole brush type 2, and while this engine comes to a gentle stop, I'll say goodbye.